All right. Well, we got a handful of people on. So,
Oh, there we go.
all right. Thank you. Aloha, sheer magic. Thank you so much. I don't even have to say it. So, I'll just go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Shantae Marquez, and I'm with fellow Profit Network coach Carrie Campbell, and we are the Dog Gurus. So, the Dog Gurus helps pet care businesses launch, grow, and profit, as well as provide pet care staffing training systems and coaching services. And we are one of the only coaching companies where every coach has owned and operated their own pet care facility. So we understand your pain points. We get it. We've been there. We've made those mistakes, and we want to help you avoid the mistakes that we've made. So if you ever need coaching, give us a call. We can have a chat and, see how we can help you out. And I'll let you know that next week is Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Till we see you. But we're going to take the next 2 weeks off of Facebook Lives. Carrie has some traveling to possibly be doing. And we will do one more on December 6th for a year-end review. And we're going to invite all of our fellow Profit Network coaches. So you can meet, I know you've probably actually seen some of the faces, but we'll bring them all in and we're just going to have a fun time. It's going to be a good sesh. So Mikey says hello. Hello, Mikey and Jasmine. Lovely to see you again. We must have seen you in Hershey. So awesome. All right. So, while we were in Hershey, actually, Carrie and I did a presentation on Tuesday, and one of the big asks was people asking for an enrichment schedule. So, you know what? We thought, why don't we do a topic on Facebook Live where we can talk about enrichment and how you can really design it? And I think when I first decided to offer that service, I was overcomplicating it in my head. But you don't have to do that. You can really start out with something very simple. And you can really start out with maybe just offering enrichment for 1 day a week and then see what the popularity is. Let it catch on. Let your staff get used to learning how to do the activities and then start to grow it from there. But Carrie, I know you have a lot to say on the enrichment schedules, and we have a couple of sample schedules to share with you too. So, okay, Carrie, take it away.
I agree with you. I think people do try to overcomplicate this, and there are multiple ways to do it. But I think one of the things that we get stuck envisioning in our minds is how the day is going to lay out, and we feel like we need to manage every minute that the dogs are with us. And really, the dog's ability to stay engaged in an individual or even in a group activity is 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, but that's a lot of mental stimulation and mental work for them. So it doesn't need to be, 30 minutes of this activity and then another 30 minutes of this. It really can be, 10 minutes of an individual activity, and then they are in an enclosure and they get a licky mat or they get a nap time. And then they go into a group play session, and then they may come back out and do another individual activity. And those can be driven by, you've got a schedule where you have maybe 4 groups or 4 different rotations that you're sending the dogs through. Or it can be that you are just working with these particular 10 dogs and you're going to have 9 of them in an enclosure while you're working with one individually. When that dog's done, they go in an enclosure, you pull another dog out. I mean, it really is a simple process to schedule. It's just a matter of kind of using your own imagination, looking at the space that you have, and what you can dictate or allocate as far as space for the different activities. And it may be that you're still running a traditional daycare program and you're just pulling one dog out at a time and doing an individual activity with that one dog and then putting him back in group play. It's easy to start that way, but definitely.
And also, I'll just say that 15 minutes is plenty because their attention spans are not that long.
Exactly.
They
will get better. They will get better as they get more skill. But
yeah. I will also say, touching on, that's how I started out, because I still offered what we called classic or traditional daycare, where it was just really a socialized setting. And then we offered enrichment care where people could add that on or purchase an enrichment package. But we tended to take care of a lot of human companion dogs. So we decided enrichment was such a success that we decided that our human companion dogs were automatically going to be enrolled in enrichment activities. Therefore, they were getting that one-on-one attention. And, in between, I want to also touch about like, I know traditionally all day group play has been a thing in our industry, but it's not necessary. And in fact, I found that when I did move to a daycare schedule where it was like blocks of play times, like I did 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. And if a client signed up for enrichment, I'd give them an enrichment activity in the middle of that. That was 15 minutes. And I found that the staff was a lot happier because they weren't like exhausted and overwhelmed by the dogs. The dogs had higher quality playtime. The dogs that would tend to act up because of boredom or overexhaustion, that all went away. And those dogs that typically were like labeled as behavior problem dogs, they weren't anymore because it didn't get to the point where they were out for 4 to 6 hours and had that opportunity to get that way. We gave them the rest in between. And I always want to say that when I was talking to my clients about it, I'd be like, well, do you want your child to be in recess for six hours a day? And once they made that connection that no, that would not be good, then they got it as to why we changed to this program and started having a more structured play session.
I know I repeat myself on this, but we overhumanize dogs in the wrong ways all the time. So, right? Pet parents are thinking all dogs love to play, all dogs love other dogs. They should just play, play, play all day long. That's the pet parent humanizing the dog. But then when you use an analogy of, well, would you want your human child at recess all day long on sugar? I mean, it's like they'd be crazy, right? And what happens is, just like with kids, they come home and they're overtired. So they're exhausted to the point where they don't even want to eat. They don't want to engage with the family. And, maybe the first couple times that's okay. The pet parents are like, "Ooh, this is awesome." But then when they're like, "Wow, I would like my dog to at least snuggle with me," and the dog is just over in the corner passed out because they literally don't have the energy to do anything else. So it's really in the best interest of both the pet parent and the dog to have the dog mentally challenged, mentally do those activities to kind of burn off that excess energy that can make them do inappropriate behaviors, and make them more appropriate when they are playing in a group setting,
Yeah.
and just rotation of having that rest time. It's really important.
And
So
the staff is going to be a lot happier to participate in a program like this and learn how to do the activities because it breaks up their day. It's not going to be monotonous. And I just want to say hello to Liz from Riverside Pet Club and Resort. We met her at Hershey as well, and she started our staff training program.
training,
So awesome. We would
absolutely,
love to hear your success. So keep us informed on how it goes. Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You know,
So let's see. Go on.
I was just gonna say, from the staff standpoint, just talking about training, when you think about that kind of traditional or classic daycare where a staff member is responsible for, 10, 15, sometimes we hear 20 dogs in a group, that takes a lot of mental focus and attention for them to be looking and monitoring all of those dogs' behavior constantly throughout their shift. So if you can give them that opportunity to work with dogs one on one, it does make the staff more engaged with the dogs and it makes that relationship build. Plus, also, it just makes it smoother, I think, for their shift to not have to be so focused on such a large group, but to be able to do things one on one.
Yeah. And I will tell you that once you do start providing enrichment activities, that's a higher level of service, allowing you to charge more money for your daycare services. So, I charged, my memory is not good, but I'm pretty sure I charged like $40 for daycare, for traditional daycare. And then for enrichment, we charged like $7 to $10 more,
Yeah.
basically. And I think at first we charged $7 more and then we grew it to $10 more. So we were getting $50 a day for enrichment. Now I was in, a metropolitan area. So I would, look at your numbers and what your costs are to run that program, but also obviously look at what your market conditions are and decide what your price is. But it should definitely be a higher priced item compared to your traditional daycare services.
Yeah, absolutely. Much more high touch, much more one-on-one engagement. So, and all of that takes more staff resources. So, definitely want to look at what your bottom line costs are so that you can price it appropriately.
I have a helicopter going behind me. I don't know if you heard that. Okay, so let's talk about some of the activities. And I guess I'm going to show a calendar that I made for my business when I owned it. And then, like I said, we actually have an opportunity to provide for you guys where you can download an enrichment daycare schedule. You just have to text in. But first, I'm going to show the calendar and I'm going to try to make it larger. So bear with me while I play with this program here. Let's see.
Shante, I just want to ask why you're, yeah, getting that a little bit larger. Is that something that was just for your staff as far as the schedule, or was this something that you sent to pet parents as well?
So I had this on the wall as you walked in our reception area. And so when we gave tours, we actually had stations that I trained my staff to stop at. And the first station was our wall of promotions and kind of our paparazzi board, is what we called it, that showed like daycare pictures. And that enrichment schedule was on there. And when we gave a tour, we really only talked about enrichment because that's where we wanted people to be
Yeah.
choosing their services in. We did say we have classic traditional daycare as well, but really when we talked about daycare, this is what we hit. And so I had a schedule where Monday to Monday, we did 3 enrichment schedules because like I said, most of our enrichment clients were human companion dogs. So these were the 3 activities that they would receive. And then I don't know if you could see this little light bulb here, but that is the benefits that the dog will receive by using these activities. And the reason why I put those benefits there is because I wanted to teach my staff on the selling points on how to promote that product. So I related the benefits, but I just did something very simple and we listed like morning was socialization, midday was one-on-one activity, and afternoon was exercise activity. And I listed the variety of products. So we weren't stuck to any one thing, but it gave them a list of options saying this is a typical schedule of what we're going to provide for our enrichment daycare.
Laurel was just commenting that it's kind of hard to see, and we kind of knew that being the size of the screen. So, Shante, will you be able to post that somewhere so that they can see the schedule a little bit larger?
Yes, I can. I'll post it. You know what? What I can do is possibly make it a part of. Let me switch this out. Hold on. And what if I hide? I'm going to hide myself, but once I hide myself, I can't talk. So let me
Okay.
see.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to hide myself too. Oh, nope. Hide myself.
All right. Well,
Yeah, I
I
can't.
will
I
share
can't.
this. It's okay. I'll hide it from now, but oh, oh, okay. Well, she said it's much better. Now I'm
Okay.
small. Now you're big. It's like we're playing musical chairs. What we're also gonna be offering a download of a free enrichment daycare schedule. What I will do is, unfortunately, this is the calendar that I just showed is not what you're going to receive, but we do have another option of a schedule that Carrie can talk a little bit more about. That's what you receive. But what I can do is I will create another opportunity for you guys to download this. So just stay tuned on the Facebook page. Okay. But Carrie, do you want to talk about the one that we're going to provide in this text?
I was just trying to see if there's any way that I can share my screen, but I don't think I can. So, yeah. So there's 2 actual documents in that the free handle. One is a schedule that lists kind of the activities based on category. So, is it something that is, scent related? Is it auditory? Is it a tactile activity? And so what actual either parts of the body or senses are we actually working when we're doing those particular activities? And they could be something as simple as, visually, it can be, a bubble, bubble machine. When you get into bubbles that smell or taste like peanut butter, then you've got, both, like a taste and an olfactory component to it. So there's some scent work as well. And there's just, that can be with physical stuff. If you start looking at, if you're working on platform training with like the Blue Nine climbs, that is, traditionally, when you're talking about platform work with animals, it, started with lions and elephants and circus work, right? They had them up on some sort of platform because the mindset is, calm feet, calm mind. So if you can get a dog to focus, then the benefits are that you're getting them to, remain focused on whatever the activity is, and calming both their mind and their feet. So, when you can explain those benefits, because that can then apply to all different things in the outside world. If you get a dog to work on a climb, whatever the command is that you use, you can use that when they're out and about. You're on a trail, you want to get a good picture of your dog, there's a stump. Get the dog to jump up on the stump and sit just like they were on a climb, and bam, you get a great photo op. So there's a lot of ways that those activities that you're going to do will benefit the dog outside of daycare. And then just putting into like a simple daily schedule. What happens right after the dogs arrive? Do they get a quick potty break? Are they then in an enclosure, or do they go right into a group play? What does that day look like, and how is it planned out? Definitely looking at your facility and how your space is allocated, whether you're moving dogs in a group from a station to station, or whether you remain in, one area, and then you switch out the activities based on, what your schedule is for the day. The second page does list all the different activities that we did, and what things that we recommend. And so we would have a required activity for the day, and then the staff had this list of all these other things that they could select if they wanted to do other things. Some things are more time consuming and you need to do one-on-one with the dog. Other things you can do in a group setting. So having the ability to do those different activities and kind of pick and choose from a menu makes it easy for the staff, and the staff will start to learn which dogs like what activities, or there may be a certain activity that is a dog's favorite and you want to include that every time they're there. And sometimes I know with the schedule that you shared, Shantae, you may have that Mondays you're working these particular activities. Well, if there's a dog that only comes every third Monday, you want to make sure that they get to do that particular activity because it's something they really enjoy.
I'm just writing in the chat that Climb actually has a downloadable training guide that includes an enrichment calendar. So I'm going to post the link here.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Because they have a lot of good stuff. And if you don't
Jamie
know,
Yeah, Jamie Popper has a huge library of videos that she's done using their equipment. So
yeah. And Alyssa asked, did you ever have issues? I'll put it up. Did you ever have issues with dogs not settling in their crates during downtime in between activities? Which, yeah, sometimes you do, but they get used to it. They start to get to the routine down. But also for the dogs that just can't seem to settle quickly, we did things like licky pads in there, which was another add-on sale. So that increased revenue. So, or put like some peanut butter in a Kong or something like that, something to get them off focus, that they're in a crate, and get them used to and being in there, settled in there, comfortable, calm, and rewarded while they're in there. Yeah.
there's
Anything to
always
add?
ways that you can spin that conversation with a pet parent, because when we switched to an all enrichment based activity program and didn't have kind of that traditional or classic daycare anymore, when they saw the schedule and saw that there were times where the dog was in an enclosure resting or doing, a puzzle toy or a licky mat, snuffle mat, something like that, the pet parents are like, well, why is my dog being kenneled? They could be in this traditional program and they're out playing all day long. Not only are you focused on the aspect the dog does need rest throughout the day, and your example of, a kid being at recess the whole time, but also it's giving them a life skill. And kennel training a dog or crate training a dog is so important because you never know when something's going to happen. You may get in a car accident and you're taken to the hospital, your dog is in the car, and they get swept off to animal control because they can't contact an emergency contact for you. So the dog is being housed at animal control until somebody from the family can come pick it up. There may be an earthquake, a tornado, a hurricane, any kind of natural disaster that can separate you from your dog. If your dog has that life skill and they know how to be in a crate and self-settle, they will survive that trauma so much better than a dog that has never been crate trained. So it's just giving them that life skill and then allowing them to practice that life skill. So that's a way that we would always spin that to pet parents, is that we're really
Yeah.
teaching them a foundation thing that they need.
And it's not, they don't think it, I mean, look, it's not a mean thing to do to the dogs to have them crate trained. My dogs tend to find the smallest space underneath my desk in the corner to curl up because it's comfortable for them. It's
Right.
enclosed and it's comfortable for them. But also, I'll just say that when your dog, especially as a puppy growing up, they get in that chewing phase. I mean, a crate is a wonderful thing. Shoes, whatever, blankets, I mean, pillows, I can go on and on. So,
That's very true.
yeah. Let's see, what else are we gonna hit? But really, the other thing that I was gonna include in with enrichment activities is that I didn't offer training at my facility, but we did include on one of the days for enrichment was enforcing basic obedience commands. And that was a huge selling point for the clients because when I related to them, like, hey, one of the things that we're going to do during your enrichment sessions is work on the jumping on, the human to dog greetings or the door management. So when you open up your door, their not first instinct isn't to shoot out the door. I mean, that once they realized, oh my gosh, that can help me with that stuff. You guys can help me work on that. They were
Yeah.
in. So that's just another way to relate it on how to promote the product.
Absolutely. Again, our spin on that to pet parents was that we called it daily manners training. And all we were doing was reinforcing the behaviors that we wanted to see. So using the term off consistently if a dog was jumping up on staff, or, having them sit and wait at a gate boundary, and making them, just self settle before they rush through, so that there's more control and that they don't hurt themselves or a staff member that's in the doorway. So yeah,
Yeah.
just, giving them the opportunity to think that we're doing this select training when really all we're doing is reinforcing the positive behaviors we want to see.
And Brittany was asking about what about the dogs that absolutely can't settle in a crate, even with a puzzle or a Kong, etc. Now, I didn't actually like when we gave the rest periods at my facility. It was a very large facility. It was 12,000 square feet. So we had 60 suites to utilize. So while the dogs were in their rest time during the activity sessions, they would go into a suite. So, we didn't really see, we weren't putting dogs into crates necessarily, but we were putting them in suites for their downtime. And after a while, they would get used to it. Like I said, it's like some of the dogs, if they just absolutely were terrified from it and it didn't work, then that's a further conversation that you have to have with your owner, and you have to work on more behavioral training with them, or whatever trauma is causing that dog to react that way. There's something else deeper that you need to work on with them or have their owners seek out help with. Wouldn't you say, Carrie?
Absolutely. And, again, it goes back to what are the pet parents doing at home that's reinforcing either their ability to tolerate being in a crate or not. If there's oh, it's so sad. Oh, I want to put you in a kennel. And they just keep letting them out because they're making noise. Well, of course, it's just like a little kid. The first time you're teaching it to do something and they don't want to do it, they're going to fuss. But they will build tolerance if they are allowed to express some concern and then get over it. So I think about, just like if a kid falls down and you say, oh, are you okay? Did you scrape your knee? And you start whining, they're going to start crying. But if you're like, walk it off, then they're fine. Makes me sound like a bad parent.
Well, I mean, I think that there is just a little bit of conditioning that needs to happen. And but not every dog is going to be appropriate for daycare or lodging at a facility.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, if it was a situation where I thought the dog was going to harm itself, then I would recommend, my friends that did in-home pet sitting. Or, I'd recommend a trainer that does training and boarding as well. So I had connections because listen, I felt like all of us in the industry, we should be friends and we should help each other out because there are plenty of dogs to go around. So I had connections of people that we worked with, and we would, recommend services to each other's clients.
Well, and that's where you really need to look at what is the root of the behavior. Is this something where the dog is just intolerant? So, they've just kind of
Right.
not had to experience it on a regular basis. So it's more of a bratty behavior. Or is this a dog that has severe isolation distress or separation anxiety? And when you're dealing with something like that, I always recommend that you get a trainer a
Mhm.
separation anxiety trainer or a veterinarian behaviorist involved. Actually, if you can get that three prong, so you're the provider for daycare, you've got a trainer as well as that veterinary behaviorist who can potentially prescribe medication if that's needed, then that's kind of how, as a team, you get a dog through that separation anxiety. But
Yeah.
but
Of
again,
course.
having those referrals that you can send people to when it's more of a severe situation.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't do anybody any good to have a dog that really is not fit for the environment. It's something that they
Right.
need to work on too. And that's also why during my presentation, I talked about how we had a really thorough onboarding process, and I wouldn't let dogs just be dropped off for the first time and do overnight care. I made sure that they actually had a separate appointment aside from their first night of care to get to used to the environment. So when they transitioned for their first night in our facility, it wasn't as shocking. I mean, can you imagine? Just think about putting yourself in that situation. You've never been to a building, you've never met these people, and all of a sudden your parents drop you off and they're like, here, they're going to babysit you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not good. So you got to think of it that way. We got to make it as easy as possible for the most success to happen when you're caring for the dogs.
Yep. Very true.
All right. Well, does anybody have any questions before we sign off? Anybody want to type in fast? In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and I will put our Grow Your Pet Care Business Facebook link.
Say that
Um,
10 times fast.
I know. I can barely say it. Wow. And I hope if you haven't joined this, go ahead. Kaylee, you're welcome. Please go on to Facebook and join this group because this is where other pet care entrepreneurs help each other out and get advice from or pose a question or just know that, hey, I'm not the only one going through what I'm going through because that's really important too. We just have two rules when you join that group, and that is be nice and no selling. And Sherry says, thanks from Australia. Oh, you're welcome. We love watching these lives. Fetch and fun, wellness and daycare. Oh, that's nice. That's a good
Great.
name. And everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope it's filled with love and laughter and you guys are busy and making great profits and all the dogs are super cuddly. So have a wonderful, wonderful holiday.
Thanks, Shantae.
Okay. Night.